Boom. There you have it. Just a day after billboards all over Morgantown asked for the firing of Neal Brown, Jordan Lesley is shown the door. But what does that mean? And what does it mean for the future of Neal Brown? Is he saved? I think that's a question that bears answering on this episode of Locked On West Virginia.
You are Locked On West Virginia, your daily podcast on the West Virginia Mountaineers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up? Welcome in, guys. My name is Mountaineer Paul, your host, and we're here again on Locked On West Virginia. Brought to you by FanDuel. Did you know that new customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets guaranteed if you win your first $5 bet? Go to FanDuel.com to get started. And thank you for making Locked On West Virginia your first listen every day and for being part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we talk about your team every single day. Well, you guys asked for it, and here it is. Jordan Lesley has officially been let go. CBS reported it first, and then multiple media outlets around West Virginia reported it. It is now a national story. Jeff Coons will replace him as defensive coordinator, who, to a lot of people I've spoken to, is a bright defensive mind. We'll see how that goes. Wouldn't be surprised to see him stay there if this team does anything down the stretch. All right, so let's read this by Mike Osti really quick because it was the first one I could see pop up. West Virginia fired defensive coordinator Jordan Lesley on Tuesday in the middle of their final bye week of the regular season. WVU Sports Now was able to confirm this news soon after the CBS Sports initial report. The move to cut ties with Lesley in the middle of his sixth season on the WVU staff. He initially arrived in Morgantown along with head coach Neal Brown in 2019 as a defensive line coach. Lesley was then promoted to co-defensive coordinator in 2020 and then top defensive coordinator in 2021. WVU inside linebackers coach and special teams coordinator Jeff Coons will take over as defensive coordinator moving forward. After an improving in 2023 following a rough 2022 campaign, the West Virginia currently ranks third worst in the entire Big 12 and has been a factor in the Mountaineers' 4-4 and 3-2 Big 12 record to this point. Jordan Lesley, a nominee for the 2020 and 2021 Broyles Award list, is in his sixth year on the Mountaineer football coaching staff and fourth as defensive coordinator. Under Lesley's guidance, the Mountaineers defensive coach competes each year as one of the best units in the Big 12 in the nation until the last couple of years. In 2023, West Virginia's defense was produced 6.5 tackles per loss per game, ranking number 2 in the Big 12, number 14 amongst Power 5 schools. The Mountaineers showed an improvement of 40 places in 2022 from 67 to 27, and in 2023 it ranked number 1 in the Big 12 in sacks, averaging 2.5 per game, tied for 19th in Power 5. 33 were the most since 2019, and where WVU had 11 of its 12 opponents to fewer than 300 yards passing. So a mixture of good and bad, I think, is what Osti was getting at there. But look, heads had to roll. I think this is where we come down to. It was Jordan or Neal at this point. I think it's basically what you have to consider. The billboards put a lot of public pressure on university staff members, Rim Baker and Gordon Gee specifically. Probably didn't want to drive to work seeing those every day. And now the very next day, it's not a coincidence that the day after that West Virginia and Neal Brown had his weekly news conference or press conference, that this move comes down. It's not a coincidence at all. The decision may have been made yesterday, and okay, fine. I can see why Neal didn't want to deal with that, especially during the bye week. He'll deal with it next Monday. And I'm sure he'll come up with a opening speech for that and thank Jordan Lesley for everything he's done. And look, Jordan Lesley has been an exemplary member of the community. He's been great on the microphone anytime he's ever been called up. I feel like I don't think he's incompetent necessarily. I mean, he had some really good defenses in Morgantown, at least two. But where I think Jordan Lesley's biggest struggle was in player personnel. For whatever reason, I think he can coach them for the most part if you get them in there, which is why the 2019 and 2020 defenses were good, or 2020 and 2021 defenses were good. But then when they became his players and his philosophy, I think that's when things kind of fell apart a little bit. Especially in the transfer portal, they really had a hard time getting secondary pieces. And then I think, another thing that you have to consider is they didn't hire a straight up corners guy this year, right? Shadon Brown deals with safeties during his career. He moves to corners. Jordan Lesley moves to safeties. And there you go. So I feel like, the secondary, there could be that's one of the major reasons I feel like it struggled as well, was you didn't have guys that specialize in those positions really. Jordan Lesley, I don't even know what he played in college, but he came in as a defensive line coach, and we just read that. So that seems to be what his specialty was. And then now you're talking about a guy, Shadon Brown, you move him to corners because you basically can't afford to hire a corners coach, I'm guessing. I'm not really sure. I can't remember what the excuse was at the time. I really can't. But this is much needed. Listen, guys, the busts we've had in coverage this year just can't be explained. Like, there have been some really bad busts this year. Really, really bad. And unfortunately for us, it's led to some losses. So who do you look for? That's going to be a good question. There's a lot of defensive coordinators I would like to have out there, but who can we afford? That's the big one. I see somebody in the chat, if you're listening on podcast, Jamil Adai is a name that gets thrown out there. He's in the NFL, like Jay says. I don't even know if the relationship is any good. I mean, he was told to hit the road to begin with. I don't know. I don't think he would. He's probably trying to work his way up in the NFL, and I think he works for Buffalo, correct? Yeah, he works for Buffalo, I believe. He's only 40, that's for sure, and loved him when he was here. It just seems like we had the chance to keep him as defensive coordinator, and we didn't. And I think that was a big loss for us, unfortunately. He's only went up and on and up and up and up ever since he's left here. He went from West Virginia. Well, he went from look at his career. He consistently went upwards. He went from graduate assistant to Cincinnati, to Arizona, to Minnesota, to West Virginia, which was his alma mater, to Georgia, to Miami, to the Buffalo Bills. So his career has either been up or lateral moves. So he's doing something right. He's the cornerbacks coach for the Bills under Sean McDermott, and you'd have to offer him some cash to get him to come back. Let's see what his Bills contract is. Corners coach contract. Yeah, so I would say, let's see. It may not even be something I can find very easily. If somebody knows how much he's getting paid, let me know. I don't want to sit here and just look for that. But point is he's a corners coach. You can argue that being a corners coach in the NFL is it's almost as good as being a defensive coordinator in college. So I think you're probably going to see similar pay. And obviously, look at what the Bills are doing right now on defense. So I hope not. Somebody mentioned Tony Gibson. God, I hope not. I hope not. They have been absolutely terrible this year on defense. I mean, what's the point? Why would you hire a guy coming off his worst years? They've had good defenses there before. Don't get me wrong, and he's been a good defensive coordinator, and he's not the worst pick. But can we get away from the 3-3-5 for a second? Can we just play a normal defense? We've seen this year, like you can recruit and develop defensive linemen at WVU. Look at our defensive line; it's the strength of our team outside of the offensive line. So why don't we run something with 4 down linemen or 3 down linemen, but not with 3 linebackers? I don't know. That's just my thoughts. I'm just done on the 3-3-5 altogether. It's a good defense if that's what you want to do, but I'm done with it. I really am. The next question I want to answer, though, is, and a lot of people have alluded to it, did Jordan Lesley die so that Neal Brown can live? And did it save Neal Brown's job? That's the question. Let's answer it right after the break. This episode of Locked On West Virginia is brought to you in part by Return on You. Hey, West Virginia fans, it's time to recognize the Return on You Player of the Week. So far this season, we've pulled over $20,000 to support players on Return on You. Micro deposits lead to massive change. With the Return on You app, you can direct your support to the athletes you love, ensuring that all funds go to the specific player you choose. Unlike collectives, you know exactly where your support's going, and you even receive exclusive content like personal videos and updates after the season. The best part, it's risk-free. If the athlete transfers or doesn't deliver the content, you get your money back. This week, I'm supporting Trey Lathan. Just pitched in $100, and I'd love for you to join me. Even $10 makes a difference. Let's show Trey Lathan and the love and keep him connected to our school. Just remember, pay today, celebrate tomorrow. Your support sets the team up for success. Plus, don't miss out on Return on You's exciting giveaway. Win 2 tickets to a game in November. Just download Return on You, create an account, and a referral code Locked On, and you're entered. Already on Return on You? Well, any contribution to an athlete's campaign also gets you entered automatically, and there's no purchase necessary, void where prohibited. Download Return on You now and join the NL game with no subscriptions and fees. Be sure to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, X, at Return on You, or ORY, at ROY_Return on You for more info. Support the players, change the game. Back on Locked On West Virginia, and the question I have for you is Neal Brown going to survive now that Jordan Lesley has died? Is Jordan Lesley a scapegoat? It's a good question, and I think that I would lean – I think both can be exclusively true. I think we just needed to get rid of Jordan Lesley. I think that was time to move on from him. And I think that the powers that be would love to keep Neal Brown around for another however long they want to keep him. And they're hoping he wins at least 2 more games to be able to do that. That's just my guess, or 3. Need to win 7 games probably to really justify it. So I think both things can be true. I think Neal Brown can survive, but I also don't think it's as a result of Lesley being fired as much. It could be. I'm open to debate this, but I think if I had to, just thinking here by myself, obviously I don't have anybody to debate with. I think if I had to guess, I would say that they could see that Jordan Lesley just needed to go, and that Neal Brown could probably benefit. But I can also see a world where Neal Brown is still fired. Just because Jordan Lesley has been fired doesn't mean that Neal Brown can't be fired either. And the rest of the season still needs to play out. If this team loses 4 games in a row, it's over with. If this team plays poorly down the stretch, it's probably over with, in my opinion. So I think we'll see. Time's going to tell. Let me know how you think, though. Let me know in the comments. Are you okay with this decision? Do you think Jordan Lesley was the number 1 public enemy for West Virginia fans that needed to go, or should they have just made it Neal Brown and gotten on with the show? Maybe promote Chad Scott, whoever. interesting questions, most definitely. It would have been interesting to see that. The first black head coach in West Virginia's history would have been Chad Scott, most likely. That would have been interesting. But back to this discussion with Lesley and Neal Brown being saved as a result, I find it endlessly interesting to consider because just trying to get in the heads of those guys upstairs in the building at West Virginia. It's an interesting topic. I'll say this too. Nobody's been great at their job this year, so everybody deserves the criticism they're getting. I don't know if billboards are the best way to express that criticism, but everybody is deserving of losing something this year, unless your name is Matt Moore, A.J. Jackson. Coons has been pretty good, which is why he got promoted, although I could have argued for A.J. Jackson as well. I mean, it really just – they're there every day. They know who knows more on that staff, I'm sure. And who else? Chad Scott. I think that's about it as far as people on the team. I feel like have done a really good job the last couple of years. Think about the Matt Moore transformation, by the way. I mean, there were years during 2020, JT Daniels was here, that people felt like Moore was the worst offensive line coach in the league. It's not the case anymore, is it? He's done a damn good job with the unit in the last couple of years. Now, yes, it takes good players, but he recruited them and developed them. So I think, you have to give him props for that. So, coaches have good and bad years just like everybody else. I'm trying to drink some Dusky here. To get myself snapped out of this. Apparently, we got to be classless if we want to change for the better. If so, then so be it. Says one of the commenters. I don't know about that. I think classless is maybe a little bit too much, but I certainly think it's okay to voice your frustrations. I certainly think it's okay to voice them on social media. I think the billboards were maybe a touch over the line, but look, it got results, didn't it? It got results. I think that the billboards absolutely played a part. Some people argue that this was already going to happen anyway, but I don't know. I think without that, maybe not. It's going to be interesting to see what else they do next. If let's say we lose another game, what are they going to do then? I'm in contact with them as well. So I think this is something that I was in the middle of. Actually, I was talking to the head of whatever you want to call it, the disgruntled fans, their donors basically. And I was just getting some info about kind of what the backstory is. I think Mike Castaza went over it a little bit on their show. But these are disgruntled fans that raised over $100,000, right? Over $100,000 that went to the MAC. Some went to NIL, and they were promised certain things. Whether that's Ren Baker, whether that's Neal Brown who made the promises, whoever promised them, whatever. I think they were promised some stuff to do with the athletic director suite or one of the suites. Oops, sorry about that. One of the suites, I think they were promised something to do with the spring game. And due to multiple factors, one of them being that they were gotten a hold of last minute, this stuff didn't happen. And yes, they're called the Wolfpack. So they are responsible for the billboards. Their name is the Wolfpack, which I get a little chuckle out of because it reminds me of, obviously, if you watched wrestling in the 90s, the Wolfpack is back. If you watched NWO from WCW back in the day, you'll know what that song is. But we had Kevin Nash, Hulk Hogan. Actually, the entire WCW was in the NWO by the end of it. Pretty good times from me being a teenager. So those were good times. Yep, we got a lot of people that know what that is in the comment section. Good, good. All right, guys. Up next on Locked On West Virginia, let's put a bow on this episode and get some final thoughts on uh, just exactly what needs to be said about this move. Stick around. This is Locked On West Virginia. This episode of Locked On West Virginia is brought to you in part by FanDuel, guys. Get ready to tackle the NFL's action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, and all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page you place your bets. Go to FanDuel.com today to get started. Never waste a hunch and make every moment count with more FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, guys, we're back. Locked On West Virginia. Thank you for joining along. So I want to say this really quick, too. Thank you to Jordan Lesley for being a standout citizen. I feel like I hate that this had to happen for you, sir. And I know you may not even watch this, but I feel bad for Jordan Lesley. His wife and kids, I feel bad for. They're going to be displaced. He's made some good money from West Virginia. But I hate to see this. I don't feel like, while it's deserved, I think he's earned this firing. He just hadn't been able to figure out the defense this last 2 years. They have had some successes, and I want to remember that. Beanie Bishop is in the NFL right now making plays every Sunday as an undrafted free agent. Dante Stills is making plays for the Arizona Cardinals every week. There are others, obviously, that have played for under Jordan Lesley's tenure that are making plays. And I hate to see this. Somebody in the comment section said it's a business. People get laid off. They do. That doesn't make him any less human to me. And I watch him every week, or every time Jordan Lesley's ever done a press conference, I've watched it, and I've always come away liking him from a personal standpoint, from how he carries himself, to that Southern drawl that he has, to the way he explains things. I've always liked Jordan Lesley. And so I hate that this had to happen for him and his family. He's got a young family. He's not an old guy at all. And I think he'll land on his feet somewhere. And I think we can look to see Jordan Lesley succeed in the future, maybe after learning some hard lessons here. And I wish for that for him. So, millionaire has really nothing to do with it. Somebody in the comments said, do you feel sorry for a millionaire? It's nothing to do with that. Money, take the money out of the equation. There's kids and a wife at stake here that are going to be displaced. They're going to move away from their school and people they've gotten to know for their basically half their lives, the kids. And I just don't like the thought of that, because I know that they like living here and all that. And to me, finances are not everything. And they're not to me. Some people do think they are. I'm not one of those people. If I got enough to just get by, I'm a really happy person usually. There are some people that aren't, and that's fine. We can disagree, but I just wanted Jordan Lesley to succeed. I felt like he was a good guy that deserved to succeed. That's really it. And a lot of times I'd let my anger get in the way of some of the promises he made along the way, and I can look back in the offseason of 2021 and think, geez, man, all those guys he brought in, Hershey McLaurin, on all those guys that didn't work out that first year. I mean, there was like 4 or 5 players just like this year that just didn't work out. And the secondary piece of this thing is the biggest problem. And unfortunately, we've still got it. And Jeff Coons is probably not going to be able to change that. If Jeff Coons fixes this defense, hire him as defensive coordinator. Because we've got some good offenses coming up. You look at Baylor, they put up 60 on Texas Tech 2 weeks ago. So, somebody said, I'm sure he's a great human being. Right. And that's what for me, I like to at least consider the human aspect in all this. Sure, he made a lot of money, but that doesn't heal everything. And I think he was happy with the job. But I wish Jordan Lesley all the success in his next endeavor. And I'll follow his career now that he's been a part of us. I'll put together a list of potential defensive coordinators in the next coming days. Maybe by tomorrow I'll have it and try to get a list out for us. People that will actually fit this job that we can afford. And there'll be a couple wish list items on there too. You know how I do it. But thank you guys for joining me on this episode. And don't forget, we're all just human sometimes. We all make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. And it's okay to learn from people that you don't like. That's something I have to tell myself every single day. I can learn from somebody I dislike or even hate if I allow myself to. Just because I don't like somebody or even maybe even hate some people or disagree with some people, whether that's politically, my personal life, I can always learn from other people whether or not I like them. And I think it's an important lesson to learn in life. Hope you guys enjoyed your evening. Wish the best to Jordan Lesley's family. Wish the best to you guys and the Wolf Pack. You got your job done, it sounds like. So it's going to be an interesting. God, somebody threw me off track. They said Saban as defensive coordinator. Gosh, what a wild thing that would be. Obviously not going to happen, but it's funny. It was funny. It made me laugh. All right, guys, I'm out. Before we go, I got to tell you, thank you for making Locked On West Virginia your first listen of today. If I could ask you for a favor for your second listen, why don't you check out the Locked On Big Ten podcast? Where Craig Sermons puts the Big Ten first when everyone else overlooks it. Find Locked On Big Ten on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. My name is Mountaineer Paul. You can find me at Paul Mountaineer on X. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel here, guys. We've grown almost 600 in the last month alone. Let's keep going. I just got a call from the second command of this entire company today, and we had a long conversation about how well this show's doing. We've had several episodes get to almost 10,000 views in the last couple weeks. We're doing pretty damn good, and it's because of you guys. So thank you for that. Let's keep making this show great. I'm out.